second time in a row, I will speak about the situation in Belarus and its impact on neighboring countries and entirely of Europe. Unfortunately, since the last edition of the Diplomatic Festival in October 2020, the situation in Belarus has not improved. I would say, in contrary, we observe more desperate and aggressive behavior of the regime in Minsk. I would like to start our discussion by posing a very simple question to you. What do you know about Belarus? What did you know about this country before August of 2020? Think about that, please. I am afraid that you knew little about this beautiful country, as did the absolute majority of European citizens. And most probably, your knowledge about Belarus is limited to, I would say, sarcastic sentence that something wrong is going on in this country. For majority of European citizens, before August of 2020, Belarus was just a white spot on the map of Europe. Unknown, unclear, ununderstandable territory. Yes, more territory than the state. 10 million of inhabitants, but not civil society. A territory without clear history and without clear prospects for the future. For Europe, it was forgotten land, at least known as the last dictatorship in Europe, but be frank, without sincere care about the people of Belarus. What does Belarus mean for Lithuania? It's almost 700 kilometers of common border and almost 700 years of common history. Just 25 kilometers away from our capital, Vilnius, we have a border with Belarus. It's more or less the same distance from this beautiful building, the Spazio d'Europa, to airport of Fiumicino. Minsk is closer to Vilnius than Florence to Rome. The roots of modern Lithuania, as well as modern Belarus, lay in the same country, the Grand Duchy of Lithuania, created in the 13th century, and later the Lithuanian-Polish Commonwealth, the country which 230 years ago adopted the first written constitution in Europe and the second in the world after American one. That means that Belarus has long tradition of statehood. For Lithuania, Belarus has been one of the main economic partners. We had a very rich and intensive cultural, scientific, and simply human flow of interconnections. Lithuania since the 90s was the people of Belarus. It has been an example that democratic and liberal reforms could be a success story. The physical and mental window to Europe, to the free and democratic world. One concrete example. Lithuania issued 224,000 visas to citizens of Belarus in 2018, and almost 110,000 in 2020. What was European policy towards Belarus until August 2020? In my opinion, there was no clear strategy on how to deal with the regime of Lukashenko. In one hand, as I already mentioned, Lukashenko was named as the last European dictator, but of type with whom European Union and member states could have some political contacts and quite intensive economic cooperation. The temperature of those contacts was varying depending on Lukashenko's behavior. When Lukashenko was arresting more political prisoners or increasing pressure on civil society and free media, Europe was decreasing the level of contacts with the regime. When Lukashenko needed better relations with Brussels, mainly to show to Putin that he, I mean Lukashenko, as an alternative partners, in this case Europe, for cooperation, he was releasing some political prisoners, and Brussels was increasing the level and intensity of cooperation with Belarus and its leadership. It was cat and mouse game. Lukashenko used Brussels and all of us as a tool to blackmail Putin in order to get some economic incentives from Russia, and for economic as well as political reasons used Russia as a threat to blackmail Europe and to get some incentives from Brussels. For quite a long time, European countries and Euro bureaucrats, Lukashenko, and for them, Lukashenko and his regime were quite convenient. There are some reasons why. Internal stability in Belarus. At the same time, stability next to EU and NATO borders, especially in the context of number of events in Ukraine, including Russian aggression against Ukraine. No EU and NATO aspirations from the side of Belarus. Quite effective border control with EU and NATO, and practical involvement with neighboring countries, including my own country, in preventing illegal trafficking of human beings, weapons, drugs, and other banned materials. Quite secure air, road, and railway transit corridor via Belarus to Russian and Asian, including Chinese markets. And finally, quite a profitable market for European companies, including Lithuanian ones. Who indeed cared about nature and substance of the Minsk regime? Not many, unfortunately. Violations of basic human rights, elimination, even that time, of political opposition by all means, but not in so massive way, limitation of freedom of expression, and other, were in fact silently tolerated by the democratic world, which did not like regime, but managed to exist with it. What had happened in August 2020? It was actually no surprise to anyone that Lukashenko would try to fraud elections. Firstly, eliminating possible alternative candidates, and secondly, falsifying ballot results. We were much more surprised of the scale of falsification and the primitive way they had been executed. That left no room for discussions about illegitimacy of Lukashenko's regime. I can imagine how astonished Lukashenko had to be when he got the real figures of the ballot results and realized that Madame Svetlana Tikhanovskaya, a candidate who came to the political arena from nowhere, not just won elections, but won them with quite large margin. But I think that the main surprise for many of us, for our societies, our political leaders, Lukashenko himself, and even Putin, was that people of Belarus are not anymore indifferent population. They have become a civil society ready to fight for their rights and to defend their choice. And finally, a very sad surprise, an unacceptable action of the regime was a brutal crackdown of peaceful demonstrations and arrests, tortures, long-term imprisonment, or even killing of innocent people in the very geographical center of Europe. Brutal repressions have touched thousands of people. Belarus stopped being just a white spot on the map of Europe since August 2020. Simple people have defended their pride, and finally Belarus had got some colors, at least in our minds. But sadly, that people had to pay very high price for that, sometimes the highest one. They sacrificed their lives. The films and pictures of protests, attacks by police forces, arrests, beaten and tortured people, crying women and men, the dying hope in the eyes of simple people of Belarus for the better future, and vanishing belief that democratic countries are ready and capable to help them and to defend them. For a while stroke the front pages of our media and slightly touched our minds and hearts, but just for a while. Thousands of Belarusian people had to leave their homes and escape from Belarus to foreign countries. Lithuania, my own country, has issued 6,000 humanitarian visas, allowing people to arrive to Lithuania and to avoid tortures and imprisonments. Those people have to start their lives from scratch. As you know, the leader of Belarus opposition, Madame Svetlana Tikhanovskaya, and her team also had to flee from Minsk and set up in Vilnius. When Lukashenko's regime finished its bloody work and peaceful protests were finally broken down, there remained little interest in Europe, in European societies, in what was happening in this European country and with its people. After breaking down protests, Lukashenko's regime has become, as I said already today, more desperate and much more aggressive. He tried to take initiative and attack and blackmail the neighboring countries and all European community. The first example was the hijacking of European airlines aircraft flying from Athens to Vilnius, two capitals of EU member states, in order to arrest a critic of regime. In my opinion, it was kind of turning point that Europe could not close its eyes to and pretend that nothing serious was happening. I am proud that Europe's response was rapid and firm, and I am convinced that it was also an unexpected surprise for Lukashenko. But unfortunately, it did not stop him. He took another mean of action against Europe, illegal migration. State institutions of Belarus planned, initiated, organized, I have been executing a new route for legal migration from Iraq, Syria, African countries via Belarus to neighboring European, Lithuania, Poland, and Latvia countries, with a very, very clear purpose to destabilize our countries and the EU in general. More than 4,000 people, mainly Iraqis, illegally, with the help of Belarus authorities, crossed Lithuanian state border from Belarus just in the period of 4-6 weeks. In order to better understand the scope of the challenge Lithuania had to face with, I would compare that in case of Italy, it would mean 80,000 migrants. Italy has simply more than 20 times larger populations than Lithuania. Lukashenko has started a hybrid attack against EU and uses migrants as a tool and a weapon against our countries and our societies. And as an extra source of income, migrants pay large amount of money to Belarus authorities for, let's say, as travel and escort to state border services. But there is no doubts. The European Union is under hybrid attack of Lukashenko. We also have to remember that Russia constructed a nuclear power plant for Lukashenko, which does not meet European security standards, and it is another tool in the hands of the dictator to blackmail Europe. What's next? What steps have to be taken by Europe? Just let's look at the goals of all involved players. It is simple and clear that our, democratic world, main goal is to have independent and sovereign state of Belarus governed by democratically elected government. Very simple. Our interest is exactly the same as democratic oppositions and civil societies one. We are not pulling Belarus into any alliance. We are not imposing internal or foreign policy priorities. It is up to people of Belarus to decide what country they want to have. The problem is that the regime has deprived its own people from this fundamental right. What is the purpose of Lukashenko and his regime? To remain in power at any cost, to legitimize results of fraudulent elections, and to avoid accountability for the crimes that the regime has already committed. When we talk about Belarus, we must always remember that there is one more player on the ground, in the field, the Kremlin. Kremlin's interest is also quite clear: to attach Belarus in one or another form to Russia, to extinguish its independence and sovereignty, or at least to limit it to a symbolic level. Kremlin sees Belarus mainly through Russia's aggressive military policy in the region. Interests and rights of people of Belarus are not considered. When we have in front of us all those absolutely incompatible goals, it becomes clear what steps have to be taken by democratic countries. First, never recognize the results of fraudulent elections, and any circumstances or conditions do not accept legitimation, even conditional, of the regime. That must be clear to everyone, including Lukashenko himself. To continue economic and political pressure on the regime, EU has to introduce new economic sanctions targeting all individuals and companies participating in the organization of flows of illegal migration to the European Union. We have to target the main economic and financial pillars of the regime, which has to pay a high price for committed crimes and violations of international law. Lukashenko and his regime, in fact, has no plan how to find ways out of this deadlock. Lukashenko has no political, intellectual, nor economic resources to govern the country. support by Putin is his only resource and hope. But is this resource endless? As we increase our pressure on Lukashenko, the cost for Russia to support his regime increases as well. Lukashenko costs Russia billions of euros. Even to Putin, it should be too expensive. We should never recognize any change of status of Belarus as a sovereign and independent country. By that, I mean possibility of creation of so-called union state of Russia and Belarus. But in fact, a final step in absorbing Belarus by Russia. Lukashenko is illegitimate, and all decisions taken by him and his regime are null and have no legal validity. EU and all democratic countries must send the clear message in advance in order to prevent these lawless steps. International organizations, human rights defenders, democratic societies, media should continue observing situation in Belarus. Yesterday, there were 812 political prisoners in Belarus. Today there may be already more. 812 human beings, 812 individuals, mothers, fathers, sisters, brothers, sons and daughters, tortured and imprisoned under inhuman conditions in Europe, in European state. Just because they think that elections were frauded and cannot accept it. Our attention, every one of us, to their fate now could be the only light, only one, in their dark lives behind the walls of prison. Think about that as well. Think about your peers beaten and expelled from Belarusian universities, young Belarusians whose future is gray or even dark. Think what you, young Italians, individually or in group, what your university could do just helping young Europeans. For example, my alma mater, University of Vilnius, has established a scholarship for 100 Belarusian students thrown out for Belarusian universities for political reasons, just allowing them to complete their studies in Vilnius. Maybe your alma mater, the Tor Vergata University, could follow this example as well. I stop here, not on a very optimistic note, but I believe that you will think about what you have heard. Now I am open to your questions. If you have any, as always, first question will be rewarded by a small award. Please, now I have to change my spectacles because I don't see you. Now I see. Okay, go ahead.
And oh, thank you. And although this kind of policy...
Lo vedi?
What? Okay,
Lo vedi il link adesso?
Okay. Okay, so although this kind of policy has already proved its failure and ineffectiveness, it seems to be the new trend in the European Union in general. And I was wondering if you, as a diplomat and as an ambassador, think that this is really the right policy or approach to adopt, and if this new policy, building walls and fences, can really lead to some solution or to a positive outcome. Thank you.
Very easy but difficult question. Just start from the philosophical question. Do we need state borders? And if we have, do we have to protect them? In fact, our border with Belarus is a field, the forest has any technical or almost none of installations to protect border with Belarus. One is we should protect our borders, even our border is external EU border. As I said, we are facing not just flows of migrants, we are facing organized flows by the state of Belarus. It is hybrid attack against sovereign countries and EU. And shall we ignore the fact and say, okay, we do nothing? Or we shall somehow react and take countermeasures? That is political part. Now talking about the human part. It's a very pity that people are being used as a weapon. And it's strategy to everyone. I mean already Europeans, to create corridors for legal migration, to allow people who really need help, who really need asylum, to get it. And Lithuania constructing a border with Belarus, because we cannot control without technical installations. Also, we have changed our national law, allowing people to apply for asylum in diplomatic missions, in border cross points, just to create this corridor for legal migration. Third question part is of people who are already in Lithuania. I said there are more than 4,000 of them. Lithuania was not prepared. We have no experience. As I mentioned, we accepted thousands of Belarusians. We have Ukrainians who escaped after revolution. We have Russian opposition who escaped from Putin's regime. We have people from Venezuela whom we took to Lithuania, allowing them to survive. And now it's another phenomenon. People are coming in thousands in short time of period where state was not ready. We didn't have capacities to allocate, to take care of everyone. Despite the fact, 4,000, as I said, 4,000 for Lithuania means the same as 80,000 for Italy in 4 weeks. Can you imagine what the number of people? We found the solution how to accept those people. First of all, to give shelter in the very awful conditions in tents, but it was summer. Now they have buildings. Kids started going to schools. They were provided with medical care. It's a problem. Lithuania, first time, has been challenged by such a challenge. But coming to the beginning, we should divide problem in 2 parts. One is border control. Third, to have legal corridors for asylum seekers. We talk about asylum seekers. And third, take care of people who are in European Union. Because you must understand, Lithuania is not the final station or final address of their trip. They all go to Germany. It's our international commitment to protect EU external border and to take care of migrants. According to European law, first country of entrance must take care. Even those people who manage to go through Lithuania, they are being caught by Polish authorities, sent back to Lithuania. If we caught someone who came from Latvia, returned to Latvia. It's all procedure quite clear. But from the very beginning, most probably the main point is that we still are creating, European Union, the mechanism how people can legally apply for asylum. But at the same time, we must understand that we are victims of organized attack by foreign country. Every one of those migrants pay up to 15,000 euros to Belgian institutions to be transported from Iraq or from somewhere to the border of Lithuania. That is organized business. And we cannot ignore that fact. But award goes to the lady for first question.
Good morning. I'm Paolo, a second-year student from Global Governance of the University of Tor Vergata. We collected some questions coming from our colleagues online that I'm now going to ask you. So the first one is about the cybersecurity strategies that the Lithuanian government is implementing to defend itself against cyber attacks that could come from Russia. The second one is about could the protection of the Lithuanian population of Russian origin be used as a trigger for a Russian military intervention as happened in Crimea? And the third one, many dissidents from Belarus have fled to Lithuania. Why this choice? Thanks very much.
May I start from the last one? I answered 700 years of common history. The closest capital, still culturally for Belarusians is easy to get integrated in our society. There are a lot of reasons. And we just opened our borders to them. But otherwise, they could have been tortured or killed. That is momentum that we needed to help people who were really in danger. Unfortunately, those who are coming via Belarus now illegally, not everyone is in danger. Second question about Russian minority. May I ask you a question? What is national composition of Italy? How many non-Italians live there in Italy? Do you know? He has no statistics, most probably. Oh, no, these are. Oh, Russian minority is very small in Lithuania, but doesn't matter. It's about 6.5% of total population. Lithuania is quite homogeneous. And the Russian community is quite integrated in society, mainly living in cities, and I don't see any problems with that. Good news for me, maybe bad news for another country, which would like to use community as trigger. But up to now, okay, we can talking about individuals who are one or another political opinion, but these political positions are not connected with nationality. And cybersecurity, good question, but not finally well formulated. Cybersecurity or threats for cybersecurity comes from Russia, but not only. There are much more players, including non-state players, organized crime. Lithuania has adopted strategy on cybersecurity, which now more or less is followed by Italy. We have centralized system under Ministry of Defense. We have a National Cybersecurity Center who is responsible to all cybersecurity in their country. For example, if my private computer has been hacked in Vilnius, I have to call National Security Center and inform about that, and they will take care. If my as ambassador's computer has been hacked, I have to call the same number, the same institution. Let's say we just changed legal framework, how to act in cyberspace, and also we have institutional capacities and human capacities, more or less, my answer is. But it's not just about Russia. Didn't answer your question, sorry. Okay?
Yes.
Okay, next one.
Thank you, Ambassador, for being here with us. My name is Shinichi Mizuno. I'm from Japan. I'm a second-year student of global governance. So I have a question regarding the relationship between Lithuania and Taiwan. I read several articles which says that Taiwan decided to place the representative institution in Lithuania, and Lithuania is planning to start trading with Taiwan, and Lithuania decided to leave 17+1, which is economic cooperation among the People's Republic of China and Central and East Europe. It seems to me that Lithuania is shifting away from People's Republic of China to Taiwan. Can we say that these things are the first step for Lithuania to see Taiwan as a representative of China and as a state in the international community? Thank you so much.
Again, I will start from the end. 17+1, that is fact. Lithuania has left 17+1 format. Do you know what does it mean, 17+1? Who have heard about that? Okay, I have to explain a little bit. According to us, it was format uniting all 4 contacts with China, where 1 is China, 17 is Eastern Central European countries, from Estonia in the north until Greece in the south. Not all EU members, but let's say some kind of format which, according to our hopes from the beginning, had to help us to enter Chinese market. Market is complicated, but big one, and it was kind of, I would say, already illusions that using this format 1+17 will be easier to communicate with China and mainly on economic matters. China saw a bit differently, and finally we realized that this format haven't brought to us any economical incentives. And government Spring decided to leave the format, saying that it doesn't bring outcome we expected, and we think that the European Union, plus it is dividing European Union in 2 parts, and our understanding is that EU has to talk to China in one voice, and instead of having some artificially made 17+1 format, we should have classical 27+1 format where EU speaks with China in one voice. Yes, you are right. We have left this format, and next we're believing that in the near future we will have 27+1. Taiwan. Every European country has trade with Taiwan. Everyone. It never has been a problem. Lithuania obeys one China policy, has no doubts. Has no talks about recognition of Taiwan as an independent country or having Taiwan's diplomatic representation in Lithuania. That is no discussions about that. But we see Taiwan as a big market, No, we are a small country. Plus, all markets are big ones. But Taiwan is 20, if I remember, 24 million inhabitants. Means we are 3 millions, and plus Taiwan is not only big, but also quite rich market. And decision to open trade representation in Taiwan has nothing extraordinary. There are, I don't know how many, about 100 representations of different countries. Also, Lithuania government agreed to allow Taiwan to open its representation in Lithuania. What is difference? The name of, but not substance. Here also in Rome there is Taipei representation. In Italy or in Rome, I think, our government decided to allow to name this representation not Taipei, but Taiwanese, meaning not Taiwan, but community of Taiwan, Taiwanese representation. That is the difference. And in our understanding, it hasn't changed any substance on our politics towards China and one China. And Taiwanese means representing not just city, but all community living in the Taiwan. That is my answer. Quite clear and simple, I think.
Any other questions? In this case, I can put a small addition from myself, if it would be welcome, because I had the chance to be in Belarus in 2019, and that time I had the chance to observe, the final results of the European Games that was held there in 2019. So I had the chance to observe what was the situation in Belarus. Despite the fact that they administered in a proper way the funds in an economical way, but on political aspect, it was before the election, so there wasn't a lot of movement. But for people that are wondering what was the ties between Lithuania and Belarus, I had the chance seeing there that there was a lot of historical places that still have a good connection. I was in a place called Litvini in Belarus, but also people don't remember that in the Middle Age, there was a part of the continuity territory of the Grand Duchy of Lithuania, and then after the Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth. So the change of the territory, it happens after the 18th century with the annexion made by Russian, Austrian Empire and Germany. Not Germany, but was the Prussian, about the Prussian. And what was really impressive to see the protest the next year after, because I was in that place directly, and seeing the image of the television of places where I was, where there was the strike, was quite effective. I'm still in contact with one of the guides I have there that showed me the many places in Belarus, and it was impressive to see what was happening there at the moment. So the situation that happened after the election and the fraud made by Alexander Lukashenko is something that, from my point of view, should have more concern in the European Union. Despite the fact that at the moment Lukashenko is like, shifting from one side to another. At the beginning was trying to deal with European Union to get another partner, but at the same time dealing with the Russians. So he's always trying to taking his position, moving from one side to another. But I think that the current situation that he has to face from the latest election puts him like, in a with the hands on the wall, so he's just acting in a really frenetic way. At the same time, I have the thought to pass in Belarus, but considering what happened with the hijacking of the plane, I'm not so much intended to doing that, also because I've written some articles about the protest and things about Svetlana Tikhanovskaya, the women that candidates herself in opposition to Alexander Lukashenko. But the ties between Lithuania and Belarus are quite strong. Even about the flag, the Belarus flag that they see in the protest, the one with the horse, the coat of arms, is really close to one that they see with the Lithuanian ones, the man on the horse. So I saw that the connection between the two countries are still strong, and I understand your concern about what is happening right there. But I have one question specifically, considering about the Dublin regulation, because now you're also facing the problem that the immigrants that come, the first country of entry is the country that have to manage. Italy is facing this situation for a long time, for the situation we all know in the Mediterranean region. I think now is the perfect time, also considering these other scenarios that has been open, to put the, another discussion about the regulation of Dublin once again, in order to find a solution that could all agree. Because for Italy, for Spain, for Greece, already has been a problem, this Dublin regulation. Now also for Lithuania and the neighborhood country around Belarus, so I think it's the perfect time to put in place a clear discussion, because at the moment there was many debates, but still nothing has changed. So my question is, are you in favor of a new discussion of the Dublin regulation?
After this long question, I can answer very shortly. Yes.
Just the last one. Just the last one. Just the last one. The rest was an addition.
No, fine. Yeah. All of us will learn. What I am proud of my country, that Lithuania since February 2018 was only country in my region who was voluntarily allocating migrants from Italy, from Malta, from Greece. It was real step of solidarity from my country towards our southern allies. Yes, you're right, it's most probably good momentum to rethink EU migration policy and also legislation on asylum seekers. Because what is happening now with Belarus on our border, that dictators are looking for our vulnerabilities to find some, ways how they could, using our legal system, to achieve the illegal goals. I would formulate in this way. That we should be cautious. But answering your question, yes, I think it's perfect moment to sit together, and it's already being done, and to reconsider all our policy on migration, because it's clear that it's not our problem. As I said, we could, if Lithuania closed our eyes and opened terms, there would be no migrants in Lithuania, but a lot of them in Germany. What also we are observing, that minivans are coming with German plate numbers to Lithuania. Migrants try to escape from the places they are located, and to escape with those cars to Germany. A lot of them, they have relatives in Germany or in Sweden, and Lithuania is just transit country. In this case, we are a country which is sticking to its commitments. If EU legislation says that first country of entry has to take care of, and first of all to look at asylum seekers' application, we must do it. We must provide services as much as we can, and look at all cases and take decision. If asylum seeker or migrant is granted asylum, he or she is free to move in Europe. If not, he has to come back. And that a lot of complications. For example, first, what is a problem, practical one, to identify people. Majority of them, or big part of them, have no documents. Belarusian KGB takes them. Without documents, you cannot confirm that that person is exactly this one. He told. And without identification of person, you cannot verify does he or she have right to apply for asylum. But it's done again, especially to have procedure longer and to wait until momentum, maybe they will be able to escape. But organized, everything is in Belarus and Belarusian authorities.
Okay. It's a problem for you.
Sure. Okay. Thank you for your speech. My name is Evelina Fokina, and I'm the Global Governance second-year student, and I'm coming from Russia. So clearly, both presidents of Russia and president of Belarus, they share the same vision on ruling the country, and as two very powerful countries. Do you think that, putting aside the immigration policy, could you also share how these countries influence external and internal politics and regulations of Lithuania? Thank you.
I don't believe that regime of Minsk would dare to take such actions without blessing from Moscow. And it's not first example. Maybe you're too young, or maybe not to remember, but a number of years ago, there were a couple of experiences with Finland, and one more classical with Norway, where you are from Russia, you know where it's called a peninsula, up north to the border. Here is one crossing border point between Norway and Russia, where people can cross only by means of transportation. And just from nowhere appeared hundreds, not thousands, hundreds of Syrians with bicycles crossing Russian border, Norwegian border. It was, I think, in my opinion, it was experiment that it works. And how it influenced our internal policy, from the very beginning, it was big impact. It was the problem, combining with COVID, combining with economic issues after COVID, and many things. After government decided to not allow people to enter just like that, situation came under control. Now it is not so big a problem in income of migrants. Now we have to take care of people who are in the country. As I said, for us it is still first experience. Let's say very, very simple things. I said majority are from Iraq, more precisely from Kurdistan of Iraq. They speak just Kurdish. We have no people speaking Kurdish. How to communicate with them? It's very, very human things we have to deal with. But I believe we'll manage. Now I read today interview with our Minister of Interiors. She said that already about 300 of migrants have returned to their own countries. Government offered to those who want to come back voluntarily. Government buys tickets and gives some amount of money for them to come back. Again, problem is with those who have no documents. Iraq doesn't cooperate and doesn't accept Iraqis who have no passports, so we cannot send them back. It takes time, but now I would say for time being it's more or less under control, but we should be ready for surprises. But I said, I don't believe that Lukashenko is brave enough to do things like that without backing, unfortunately. We'll see.
Okay, we are going to take just this question and maybe another one. So this one is
Thank you.
not the last one, but we have just another question. And then
Thank you. My name is Beatriz. I come from Brazil. I'm a second-year student of Global Governance at the University of Tor Vergata. And during your speech, if I understood correctly, even though it has a negative impact, the fraud of Belarus election, it was something not that surprising. It was already possible to see some traces of what could happen, and in fact happened. What Lithuania could have done before to maybe avoid or diminish the consequences of the illegitimate election of August of 2020? Thank you.
What Lithuania could have done? Yeah, no. It's a very difficult question. First of all, it's an independent country. We cannot intervene in the internal affairs, and we never have done it. It's a sovereign, independent country. But if we don't do that, it doesn't mean that others are not doing it also. That's my rhetoric remark, maybe following previous question. What we try to do after elections, just to save lives. Just. And I am happy and proud that we managed to save many of them. People of Belarus, as I said in my speech, are anymore just statistics. People have become really human beings and citizens of their own country. Of course, they are deprived from the right to decide the destiny of their country, but for time being. For now, our main goal is to protect Belarus as independent country. It's clear. But we cannot start war against, we cannot do anything what is forbidden by international law. And we, as I said, we never done. We can organize conferences, what is legally, as today we have conference, we can do it the same and used to do in Belarus, and not only we helped creation of civil society, we had contacts with universities. I don't know, maybe Valdemar, when European Humanitarian University was exiled from Minsk, 2006, something like that? Oh, many years ago, one university named as European Humanitarian University was banned by Lukashenko. All university. And since that time, it's only university in Europe which works in exile, there in Vilnius. Students coming from Belarus to Belarusian university to study in Russian or in English, but not in Lithuanian, I think, in Vilnius, in Lithuania. We just opened our arms and said, okay, come here. We will try to help you. We cannot use the path of dictator. We cannot break the law, neither national, neither international. That is guiding line. We always must be according to the law. That is our limit, but also that is our strength. Also, example of Belarus shows that said before for Europe we could coexist, and my country also. Yes, dictator, but stability, more or less, it's okay next to our doors. But it shows, the example shows that stability in dictatorship could be just illusion. It's not sustainable. It's temporary. And that is my message to another dictatorships. That it is not sustainable. People now can get access to information they would like travel to know, to get freedoms they want to. And you cannot close, you cannot make again Soviet Union. I was grown in Soviet Union, this prison of 270 million people. No way back.
The last question, can we take the last question, the last one?
we can continue without streaming.
Okay, thank you very much. My name is Aygüz Yücedal. I'm from Turkey, and I'm second year student of global governance.
İyi günler.
Excuse me?
İyi günler.
İyi günler. Merhaba. Thank you. Actually, I have two questions. The first one is, states are making huge investments in the arms and defense industry. And nowadays, I want to ask about today's financial situation in the whole world. Like, will the immigration crisis also cause governments to question their investments, especially Lithuania? Like, what is their position nowadays, economic situation, both in terms of immigration crisis and about COVID-19 as well? And my second question is, Turkey is also dealing with the same situation with the Belarus, Kurdistan, Afghanistan, and so on, like Russia as well. The people are not in freedom, like they're not free to like invest their own opinions. The journalists and politicians and also academicians are also getting arrested while they're just saying the truth in the Turkey. And they also have many asylums right now. According to the numbers, Turkey is the country that can accept refugees the most in Europe. Like, what is your own opinion and your own thoughts about Turkey's situation right now? Thank you.
One of my colleagues says that a real diplomat thinks 10 times before saying nothing. Now I will try to answer to your complicated questions. Defense industry. Unfortunately, war is part of international relations. And we cannot avoid. A lady from Russia knows the Russian nice expression: if you don't feed your own army, you feed the army of foreign country, more or less. Yeah? In Russian is the saying. That is my answer. You must be able to defend yourself. Army is technically neutral. Usage is positive or negative. If you attack, if you use for bad things, it's negative. If you defend yourself, it's positive. And we cannot avoid armies. Armies need arms, and the defense industry is part of our security policy and economy as well. And like you or don't like it, it's reality. Investments. Divide COVID and migrants to two different topics. For our country, migrants will not have any influence on investment policy. It's not such large scale, and business even would like if some of people will stay in Lithuania as they're looking what they would like to employ. For example, Lithuania took 170 Afghans doing this, almost 200, this avocation process from Kabul, and all of them got asylum, and the companies are calling and would like to employ them with whole families. Let's say it could be also positive for economy. But we cannot talk about human beings as a labor force. Just first of all, legal part, and if they stay legally, we need to find ways how to employ them, but nothing to do with investment. COVID-19 has shown and proved that Europe needs some industrial capacities and technological independence. And I believe that this lesson has been learned, and we will create and build up those capacities on European continent. Turkey. I spent there 3 years. 2005 and 2008. And now I'm based in Ankara. Fortunately, my Turkish that time was limited. Now it's very much limited, but merhaba and iguler I still remember. What means hello in Turkish. I remember in April it was about in June, about 3 million migrants in Turkey. Huge number of people. Yes, we can say that Turkey is a big country and has capacity to absorb, but even for Turkey it's a challenge, big one. Talking about very beginning, the first question, what we have to do? I mean developed countries, to create conditions of countries of origin of migration, allowing people to work and live there. That is main task. Not creating corridors of migration, but increasing standards of life in the countries, solving problems, conflicts. 80% of total migration flows are caused by wars and conflicts. 80%. And that is doable. If we put enough efforts, we stop conflicts, and we can decrease number of flows of migrants. Climate change, that is a challenge. It's also cause for migration. People lose their lands, their farms, they cannot survive, and they need to go somewhere. Also, we should find ways to offer alternative to them, how they could earn their lives and their own countries. I think no one leaves their native country just because they want to leave. If people are forced to do it, it's always negative emotion. You have to run to overcome dangerous obstacles on the way. Imagine people what they need to suffer in Libya to cross Mediterranean. That is awful. But our task is a strategic one goal, to have the world where people don't need to migrate just because they cannot live. Migrants always used to be and will be for students, for love, for families, for work, but not just to survive. That is clearly a task to change this world to the better. Sometimes arms also could be used for that purpose. With Turkey, that is tough partner, generally. It's a big nation, regional power, very much developed, intellectually, economically, military, the second army NATO after United States. We always need everyone partner to respect and to talk to. And with Turkey it's possible to speak and to find solutions. It's not easy partner, but very strong one. And our task is generally to have Turkey not to another part of the table, but next to, aside. I have time until tomorrow morning. Guys, go ahead.
I don't know if the streaming will go on, but you said that we can, but I don't know, because for the schedule I know that there will take place another conference, so we should have end here at the moment, unfortunately.
Final remarks. Really, thank you so much for being today, for your questions, for your challenges. I am not used to speak in front of audience, You know, when I was a student, I was told to my younger colleagues, one professor asked us, what is more important for diplomats, to talk or to listen to? I'm thinking, someone said to talk, another said to listen to, and professor said, no, for diplomats the most important is to write. Because you must always write. My work is mainly to write. But if I managed a little bit to touch your minds and hearts, I would be very happy. There is action to send a letter to political prisoner in Belarus, just a letter of support. One more time, think about that. You know, everyone can do something. Even small things matters. Don't remain indifferent, because indifference, it's desire of everyone dictator. If you are part of civil society, you must be proactive. Never allow yourselves to remain indifferent when you see injustice. In Belarus, in Lithuania, in Italy, in Afghanistan, doesn't matter. Every life matters, every action matters. Thank you so much.